geographical boundary, working toward creating a global spiritual community rooted in profound love, which cultivates wonder, imagination, and the courage to act. Adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for many bricks and mortar congregations. Early on in the pandemic, we were in a unique position to assist many congregations with the transition. We hosted special episodes of The VUU, provided advice and counseling to religious professionals, and trained congregations for live streaming worship, all while providing robust online programming for our members. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine to our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison, and investing in innovative ministry. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and to fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The VUU. The VUU is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Welcome everyone to another episode of The VUU from the Church of the Larger Fellowship, our weekly podcast. We are delighted and excited to welcome the Reverend Julián Jamaica Soto to the show today. But first, our usual co-host roundup. I am Cristina Rivera, she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you from my ancestral Taino lands in the land of Borinquen, also known as Puerto Rico, where it is, again, 80 in the 80 degrees, but really humid. It's definitely September in Puerto Rico. Aisha, how you doing?
Hi, I'm Aisha Hauser. My pronouns are she, her, and I come to you from the land of the Coast Salish people, the Muckleshoot, Duwamish, Suquamish, also known as Seattle, Washington. And it's kind of sunny. It gets overcast. This is the time in Seattle where you have like all four, well, maybe not snow, 3 seasons in an hour every hour. So it's kind of all over the place. But welcome all. I'm so excited to talk to Julián. And DC, you are out east, I understand. How are you?
Yes, I am well. I am in central Pennsylvania. I am Reverend DC Fortune, he, him pronouns, and I am on the ancestral lands of the Susquehannock people and the Lenape broader community of folks. Things here are like there's sun. Honestly, I haven't been outside. Well, I mean, I went outside to get my paper, but I have no idea. That was before coffee, so I have no idea what the weather was like. but it's sunny and it appears to be nice. So I guess that's where we are here in central Pennsylvania. I'm excited about today's show too. I haven't seen Reverend Julián in a bazillion years. And I'm going to stall for a quick second until are you with us? Are you with us? All right.
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, friends. I am Janine Gelsinger. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you from 5 seconds after kid drop-off in Phoenix, Arizona.
That will absolutely do it. 5 seconds after drop off and a computer update, which always happens right when we're trying to log on to something live. It's just without fail. Windows wants to
I'm
update.
presuming the weather in Phoenix is unusually, typically hot, sunny.
It's actually weird and cloudy and rainy, which, who
What?
knows? I know. But I will say that the political temperature in my car this morning at school drop off was a thing, because my children came home from school with books about September 11th and worksheets from kindergarten about. So we had some unlearning sessions happening in the car this morning. And then they told me they're learning This Land Is My Land in their music class. So we had another conversation about colonialism. So the state of public education in Arizona for kindergartners is some interesting. So that's the weather. That's the climate for me today.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's right on track.
Yeah.
That track.
That tracks Arizona, baby.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
So what do we have in the UU Land Roundup? Any news?
Oh my God, MFC reading. Next week is my first week
For those
at MFC, and I have, when they said seminary has a lot of reading, I was like, yeah, okay. And I got there and I was like, holy shit, this is insane. And then later on, they said, do you want to be on the MFC? But there's a lot of reading. And I was like, yeah. Jesus. There's a lot.
Want to let everyone know what that is, DC?
Oh, right.
Because we might have
MFC,
some newcomers
the
to
alphabet
the show.
soup, right. Ministerial Fellowship Committee is the essentially the credentialing body for ministers in our association. And what we do is when we sign up for minister school, we agree to go through this process that vets our ministerial candidates and make sure that we know all the stuff we have to know, that we need to know, and have the training to be ministers in our very complex faith. And that apparently involves providing biographical and academic and spiritual journey packets that range from anywhere from 150 to 300 pages per person. And we are seeing, my little group is seeing 5 candidates next week. And we have this meeting, and then we get to tell them, yay, congratulations, you get to be a minister. Or here's a list of stuff you got to do we'll come back next time. So, but yeah, there's a lot of reading. So prayers for those who are seeing the MFC, because it is an incredibly stressful time. And prayers for your poor MFC people who are buried in text this week.
I'm holding my tongue because.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's move on. Well, here's the thing. If I may,
it's not like we don't have the power to change this.
I'm going to start talking about a different profession, and just stay with me, and then I'll connect it to the MFC. So one of the biggest criticisms of how medical doctors are trained at the internships is literally that they are forced to not sleep, right? In some of the rotations. And that study after study after study has shown it does not help them be better doctors. And in fact, many of them die in car crashes because there's not many, but there are so many ramifications for how terrible it is how doctors are trained. I don't know how much of it has changed, but that's because
Right.
it doesn't result right. So
Right.
I've heard from folks since, like, I don't know, a year after I became a UU about this process, because I looked into it, because anybody with, any kind of interest in leadership gets told, go to seminary. So the thing about this is, like, how we do anything is how we do everything. And we have so many folks in religious leadership, not just ordained clergy and not just Unitarian Universalism, who fundamentally don't know how to be around people, don't know how to talk to people, don't know how to deal with conflict. So my biggest criticism of how we move through and where the certification process for our ordained clergy being UUs is it should be hard, but it's hard on the wrong things. I don't know that a 500-page paper or 100-page paper and having people go slog through this is indicative of how emotionally intelligent anyone is, how
Right.
self-differentiated anyone is. I mean, all that to me, it indicates that somebody knows how to write really well. And writing well is all well and good. Woohoo. It still remains like, I don't know that it is the most affirming way that we
Right.
have to have people in leadership who care for others. Because I will tell you, I don't know, this is not going to come as a surprise to anyone who's listening to me right now. People in spiritual leadership cause a lot of harm, and I mean damage. People have had their lives ruined as a result of this is not specific to Unitarian Universalism. And when I say clergy misconduct, I don't just mean sexual, all that stuff. I mean bullying. I mean gaslighting, mistreating people in a way that causes deep harm.
Right.
So I'm going to be leading for a second time, Healing from Religious Trauma, a class that the Church of Larger Fellowship is sponsoring. So I say this because I think at some point, now it's been many years that we understand this process isn't helpful. I'm going to get off myself, but thank you for indulging me. I'm going to now drink my coffee.
That's okay. That's another whole conversation, and I would be really glad to have that conversation about our process, because it has changed, and for the better. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk with Julián. But no, like, we can do that. Like, I'd be happy to do that. And all I can say is that it's not as bad as when I went through, and when I went through, it wasn't as bad as years before.
I mean,
it's
that's
progressively getting better. But
that's a low bar to be like, not as bad. But also, DC, like, it's not your job to defend the entire MFC.
Yeah, I'm
right?
sorry.
No, and I'm not. But let me just say this: the way I presented all of that paperwork, a lot of that is like transcripts, right? A lot of that is just, it's a whole bunch of little bitty pieces that all have to be brought together in a giant document. So
it's true. You're giving me I have two recommendation letters to turn in to people tomorrow so they can send their stuff.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not concerned that my minister knows how to write. I'm concerned that my minister knows how to hold people accountable when they're causing harm in their congregation. I'm concerned that my minister knows how to, form relationships and mediate conflict and lean into conflict as transformation and lead us in social justice work in the world. I mean, I get asked sometimes why I'm not a minister, and depending on who I'm answering, my response is, I don't want to pause the ministry I'm already doing to read 200 books for 2 years and spend all my money on student loans.
Well, yeah, there's that.
I get asked a similar thing. Why don't you just become ordained? And, then you would be able to be a reverend and have the title. And I'm like, I can't think of a worse reason, except maybe the tax benefit as such, to become ordained. To do the job that I'm already doing, to do the ministry that I'm already doing. Anyways, I want to bring Julián's voice into this conversation.
Let's do this.
So we are joined by Reverend Soto, who is usually in motion, and their names are no exception. You may have heard them called Teresa or Ninan. They are now Julián Jamaica Soto. Pastor Julián has been a Unitarian Universalist minister for 6 years, recently completing a ministry at First Unitarian Church of Oakland, California. They believe in the truth, power, and beauty of Unitarian Universalism. Amen. And are committed to our collective liberation and the healing of the world. They teach, preach, and art in that direction. Blessings on that. Yes, Pastor Julián graduated from Millville Lamar Theological School in 2016. They have a fluffy white Russian dog named Pico, who is so adorable. And they love Ethiopian food and pizza. And I am with you on that with the pizza. Julián, welcome.
Thank you for having me today.
We are excited for you to be here today. And so I know that you probably have feelings about this whole MFC conversation.
Oh man. So the reason I start that way is that it's weighty, right? We know that people are really faithful to do the work of that committee. And we know that without it, we would be worse off. And questions about how to make it better, I feel like we should welcome those. One of the things that's true about the process generally is that some of the things we said that we're really interested in, emotional competence, accountability, relationships, the place those are most seen is in two places actually. One is in the internship that's required to even be able to arrive, and the other is in clinical pastoral education, which is a hospital or other people serving setting. And there's some distance between those two settings and seeing the committee itself. So that's one place we could have more conversation about making those parts more important or more connected to the outcome. And inside that, most places, I did my clinical pastoral education at a VA hospital, which is federal. So if you do it at a federal facility, you don't have to pay tuition. But if you did it at a regular neighborhood hospital that was private, it's expensive.
Yep.
Wow.
So a place where we would want to see more people do more practice might be prohibitive because of the cost. And
Yeah.
similarly, because one of the things that's true about ministers is that they are on the hook. They are on the hook for everything that happens in that congregation, whether it's actually their responsibility or not.
That's
So
True.
some people who are interns have an experience of being treated with power and control. And
Yep.
power and control are different from learning and growing. So there's another layer of accountability that would make a really big difference for having healthy internships that would feed into the competencies that we're talking about.
Right.
Amen and ashe. Because
Yeah.
if we don't have folks modeling how to, okay, because of the system in which we operate, which is patriarchal, hierarchical, and rooted in white supremacy domination, right? We're conditioned a certain way. So there's an element of unlearning that conditioning and learning, especially for folks raised to be white, but everyone who has been, kind of conditioned into this is what leadership looks like, doing it in a different way takes intention, especially in systems that still operate very much within patriarchy and hierarchy. Now, hierarchy doesn't have to be inherently bad, but I think when it's hierarchy for hierarchy's sake, and we do this because I'm in this role, okay. However, where in our systems do we model how to be collaborative, how to sit in discomfort in ways that, yeah, it is. I don't like conflict. I truly do not. I'm not afraid of conflict. There's a difference. I don't seek it out. I don't create it for bullshit's sake. When it happens, I'm like, let's talk about this. I lean in, right? Saying I'm great at it, but I do the best I can. But Julián, to your point, it's a crapshoot. The same with I got an MSW, the internship, and that was one of the first things, thankfully, I learned. Get an excellent internship. That will make your whole, and I had two. And it's the same with ministers. If you have an excellent internship, if you have an excellent supervisor who is self-differentiated, not a bully, then it's phenomenal. If you have someone who causes harm, I had somebody say to me, I've never been in therapy until after my internship with this minister. Sorry, what?
What?
What? Yeah. So, and that's not even an unusual story. People have to recover from problematic internships. Look, there are phenomenal ministers. Obviously, this is not hashtag not all ministers. That's not even the point. But we can, as you use, especially who aren't saying to people, you're going to die and go to heaven, because we just don't know, right? What we're doing is trying to figure it out. And our places can be the places where we try to figure it out. However, in order not to cause harm, we have to center what it means to center the relationship, community care. And yes, accountability within the context of what does it mean to have a way back? I've heard Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, our UUA president, say we need to have a path to repair. Now, we do not accept all behavior. If you literally are unable to be part of this community, go take time. Here are some things you could do to work on yourself. We will not accept, nonsense. I'm going to stop talking now. I love you all, and I appreciate this conversation. I'm very charged about it.
Quick things. One, so what? Not all ministers. If it were all of them, that would be even worse. Right? That's definitely not the point. Right? And two, my experience of congregations so far is that most congregations I'm not going to say most. I'm going to say it's easy to find a congregation who thinks that the job of the minister is to take orders, almost like Burger King, kind of like Subway, and pony it up.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I'm a minister is because my conscience requires it of me. And so one of the complications with the whole Subway Burger King model is that I'm not accountable for someone else's conscience. I'm not. I'm not accountable for Aisha's conscience, DC's, Janine's, not anyone's. I'm accountable for my own conscience. And if I don't do what my conscience says because I'm too busy filling Subway orders, what integrity do I have remaining?
Right.
That's a really big problem in the way some congregations expect the minister to show up.
Can I ask you something, Julián?
So that's in the balance for me.
Can I offer a yes and? Because I don't disagree at all. And I absolutely 7,000% agree that there is that, more often than not, that Burger King model, have it your way. And that's not a thing. We don't want that to be a thing in religious community or even in society, right? What does it mean to function as society? So my question is, and this is a question I posed years ago when the Commission on Institutional Change convened a group of people. You were there, Julián, with many others. At some point, at some point in the history of Unitarian and Universalism, even before the 60s, a minister, let's say a congregation behaves badly and hurts a minister. That minister spends the rest of their career protecting themselves from congregations. A congregation has a minister misconduct. That congregation spends the rest of its history protecting itself from ministers, right? So that compounds the already capitalist notion of transactionality, transaction-based ministry. Where, and this is an honest question, where and how do we change this? And I don't honestly, I've been asking myself this, as a social worker, when I go into a mental health clinic, I know it's on me. I'm working with, that was my first job after I graduated, is at a community mental health clinic. I couldn't go in there and be like, well, this schizophrenic client yelled at me like that. Yes, because they are schizophrenic, and I'm not. Okay, now I have to be careful with my analogies. My point is, these are lay folks who haven't had modeling or haven't been held accountable, haven't had any kind of container to, for the most part, to do better and be better, because that's not necessarily how we've operated as UUs. So where do we do that? And I'm not putting this only on, I'm saying, like, I don't know, where do we start? How do we start to build a new way, as the song goes? I mean, you see what I'm saying, Julián? Is my question landing? I'm like, where do we start to fix it?
Because I work on this question every day, because I'm between congregations right now. So what am I looking for in a congregation? I've had to be honest with myself that it would not be easy to find a congregation that says, oh, you're disabled and queer and trans. We don't know all about that, but we want to know, and we promise not to stop wanting to know.
Right.
It's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, right, I'm saying to you, like, I'm not here to do Burger King, but I'm not rigid about it either. I want people to love what they have, to own what they love, and do what they want. Like, between my first idea and their last idea are 1,000 possibilities. But I don't want anything harmful. I don't want anything consumptive. Those are things I hope that we can come to agree on. And I think it is a conversation, but I think it's easy to find a situation where there are sides. There's ostensibly the minister's side and the congregation side. It makes it much harder when I know that there's only one side. It's only the congregation. I don't have a side, but I can't say that I'm not going to care for my conscience or care for my spiritual or physical body just to be on the same side as the congregation. That's like a limit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, it is good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Good to see you.
And we have poetry to talk about. We don't just have to take apart fixed Unitarian Universalism. I think that could be another show. So tell us now. Your first book, which, mind you, I have like 3 copies of downstairs. Of course, not right next to me. That was Spilling the Light. Spilling the Light has been in many. What is it called when you? There it is. When you. Wow, my language is not working this morning. Many printings.
Reprints.
Many printings.
It's in its fifth printing.
What? That's nuts. Awesome.
So cool.
It's awesome sauce. And now you have another collection. Tell us about it. So excited.
Well, I'm really grateful that I'm going to be traveling in Arizona, visiting the congregations with UU Jazz, and we will have a chapbook for folks. Somewhat themed around the desert, but definitely themed around the future and everything that's possible.
Wow. So can you explain what that is, a chapbook?
It's like a small collection that small.
Like little chapters or? No,
it just has to do with the style. So for example, it's not going to have an ISBN. Right?
Okay.
It's not going to be available at Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
It's only going to be available through UU Jazz, actually, and through me, I guess. Yeah. Those 2 places.
Would you like
will
to
it be
share
available electronically, or will it be available on paper, or both, or audio?
I haven't thought about doing it electronically, but it's definitely a small paper book.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read you one.
Yes, please do that.
And in the meantime, I'll put a link in the chat about how to obtain this amazing chapbook from Red.
Great. And Tanner will put that link in the show notes for later. Awesome.
I need you to imagine that this moment This body is not different, is equivalent to your own. I need you to imagine that when I die to self, I'm not dying to this body, but holding this body in all the ways that it is vulnerable, not weak exactly, but listen, sometimes also weak. And that after dying to self comes living in and for the world in her flaming entirety, comes surrender of the spirit to that which is greater, comes the openness of the new and next moment, building a new way out of the old pieces, where there was a desert, a living spring. That's 5783, which is
Yeah, what is
the
your process like? You're so, I mean, your poems are so, and your prose are so, just I don't even know what to say. They touch me like on a heart level. Like I feel your words when I read them. So I'd love to know, do you know, does it come at one sitting? Do you go back? I'd love to know a little bit about the
literally.
process.
So, in literature, we talk a lot about what the corrections in the margins. I forget the specific name for it right now because we're live, but that's the thing, to look back at Shakespeare's rough drafts or whatever and see the changes. And that doesn't really exist if you're typing on your phone or typing on your computer. But I imagine you would see lots of changes. And I usually start with a feeling and then connect it to an image and then think about what I want to say about the image. One of the things that happened right before Spilling the Light actually was that I was thinking about my writing and thinking about my poetry specifically, right? So poetry in general has lots of fancy forms, you know, like sonnets and villanelles and all that kind of thing, where you have to count the meter and use specific numbers of lines. And certainly I can do that. It's not that I can't, right? But I thought about it and I thought, who would I be doing that for, right? Would it be for me? Would it be for, who is it for? Is it for the reader? What are they going to get out of me counting syllables, right? So then I said, no, what I want to make sure, excuse me, I'm getting over a thing, is that my reader has a particular experience. And usually it's an experience of being loved or being encouraged or being remembered or being supported, right? Being understood. Those are the experiences I want people to have when they read my poems. So that doesn't involve counting syllables or other things. And it involves thinking about how it feels to read it. And so that's one of my most important parts.
That comes through, my friend. That you, for me, you have accomplished that.
I'm so
Because
glad.
I truly, I feel your poems. Do you have a favorite? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Janine.
Probably not. I have some that I like more than others. And sometimes I'll write something that I think is okay. People will share it like mad. I'll be like, all right. Good done.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think it can possibly be understated how much impact your poetry has had on Unitarian Universalism and also Unitarian Universalist religious professionals. Every retreat I'm at, every meeting I'm in, there isn't a time where someone's like, should we light the chalice? And like 5 copies of this come out on the table at once.
I'm so grateful.
It's true. And I'm gonna gush about it because it really is. I mean, we all know the kind of work that I do in Arizona, right? And like sometimes hope is hard to find. You know, I have days like that. And some poetry about hope doesn't hit me in the right way, right? It's like very Pollyanna, like it'll all be fine. And like, no memes on the UUA page, it will not all just work out fine. Like, that's spiritual bypassing toxic positivity. That's not true, right? But you write about hope in a way that is so true and real, and at least for me, and I think a lot of others, feels like you're not skipping the acknowledgement of what's hard and true, and also somehow finding the beauty and hope in the struggle. And I think that is that for me is why it resonates, and it really honestly gets me through a lot of days.
I also just want to let you know I got it on my iPad because I was along with my hard copy. So anyway, go ahead.
I have it on my phone because people will be like, read from your book. And I'll be like, yeah, I have it right here. No, I don't. So I just put it on my phone.
You don't carry it on your person at all times. Do you remember that day that I had it in my dress like this when we were?
No, listen, 2 things about hope. There's this painter named Chuck Close, and he's probably not cool to date, so don't date him. He seems like a mean boyfriend. I don't know, though. I'm not alleging. Anyway, the point of my story is that he's probably not cool to date, so don't date him. And then he is a cool painter. He's paralyzed, so he makes these giant canvases, and he has them raised and lower inside his house on pulleys. And he has face blindness, so he paints people by putting their face on a grid and then filling in the grid. So that's Chuck Close. And his paintings are really cool. He has one in the Modern Gallery of Art that's an elder woman with a tracheotomy. And she looks great when you're looking at her from a distance. When you get up close, it's fingerprints, thumbprints, different weights of thumbprints that make up the strokes of the painting. Anyway, Chuck Close says that inspiration is for amateurs. So sometimes that's what gets me out of bed. Right? Like, I'm not an amateur, let's go. And I told my nephew that, and he said, oh, that's inspiring. And it made me laugh. So, that's one thing about him.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I was talking at a colleagues retreat with one of our colleagues who'd been in Alaska for a really long time. I think his name was John. And he was so committed to the future. And one of the things he told me is that he doesn't care about hope. Like, hope or no hope, he's going to do what he has to do to take care of the future, to leave the world the way he wants to leave it. And I know that's like so gritty, but I think that's some of what's behind my ability to find other ways to hope, because I can't do it the happy way. I wish I could, maybe.
I think Emily.
But a lot of things changed for me after Sandy Hook about the world and what it means to be in the world and what my responsibility is to the world. So rather than be happy, I'd rather be truthful. And in that truth, we find togetherness, we find possibilities, and those make me happy. Y'all make me happy. So that's kind of how I relate to the whole thing.
I feel like you talk in poems, Julián. I just want to write everything you're saying down.
Yeah. I think Emily Dickinson's version of hope strikes me as the words of someone who probably drank to forget the chains around her. You know? Because she was so constrained by life and age and everything else. It's sort of almost like Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. It's that that she wove this fantasy of what hope must be like, described it as a thing with feathers and wings, as opposed to claws and teeth. You know, hope is weird stuff.
Well, it's abstract, right? Like what, I mean, it's a leap of faith because it's pretty shitty out there. But sure, let's hope. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic, even though I don't sound like it, but I am. I mean, I quote James Baldwin, I can't be a pessimist because I'm alive. I love that. It's just enough.
Hope was Pandora's, I would say hope was Pandora's last curse released upon humanity.
Ooh. We're going deep in these parts today.
I don't know. I think the reason that's true, though, isn't because of hope itself. It's because in order to be hopeful, you have to be willing to be disappointed.
Isn't that the truth?
Okay, I need my brain is full. I need a nap.
Who wants to be disappointed on a regular basis? It's not pleasant.
Right.
It's the most unpleasant feeling we'll just encounter on a regular Tuesday. Is disappointment.
And that's where the Buddha comes in, right? The Buddhist teachings of suffering is optional, accepting what is. And when I first learned that, I was like, fuck you, Buddha, I'm not accepting this shit. But now as I'm getting older, I'm understanding a little more of the nuance of that. It's not that you don't fight for justice and equity and be pissed at the injustices of the world. It's that I think for me, I could be consumed and like literally not be able to leave my house if I truly absorb the enormity of the horrors we inflict upon each other. And so there's an element of having to, what I say is I live with some degree of cognitive dissonance. And I don't know if that's, because it's not that I don't know what's happening, but it's like, I want to feel joy. I want to find joy and love and put that out in the world, because my suffering, you know, I think some of the things I read in some Zen Buddhist books are like, my suffering will be add suffering to the world, right? So we can know things are terrible, work to change them, and still find joy.
Listen, people lift up Greta Thunberg all the time and say what a great thing she's done for the world, and her school strike when she was the only one striking. But before the school strike, she couldn't get out of bed.
She could not.
Stopped
That's
talking.
right.
She lost weight.
That's right.
Right? And then more things happen. And I think it's really important for us not to overlook the price that we pay to stay active in the work that matters to us. We can acknowledge that for each other without making a big deal like it's just true. Right? It costs something to keep next to the world, and it matters. It matters that we pay the price. It matters to acknowledge that, and that's part of what gives us strength to go forward.
Amen. Chris?
Well, you jumped in. We got a little deep while you were gone.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I love it. I love it.
Glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. We had a little brownout here in Puerto Rico, which power grid is not even close to being stable here. So these things just happen.
Would you like another poem?
Yes.
Yes.
So I wrote this one during the pandemic, but I'm thinking about how it applies now, and especially during the time of the Jewish New Year. A year is something like one of those Jacob's Ladder toys. A single action sets up a block to falling. Is it falling up? Falling down? And this year has flexed between periscope, kaleidoscope, and telescope. One day crashed into the next. Clack. One challenge into the next. Clack. And we have learned that the harder it is, the more care we take leaning into the strings that hold us together, because no matter what happens, black, we remain together, interwoven such that when our covenant holds, we are the embodiment of the life force that rises between us. And when it lies broken between us, damaged with arrogance and hate, we are the possibility of still rising, of turning the block that falls away into the energy of the mutually assured ascension we are. After all, both stars and earth we are, and our promises are always asking to be remade. Come then, let us go up and come down, but always together for this moment, for the love of the next.
What is your process like, Julián, when like, do you have the inspiration? Like, is there something that you want to say to the world, and then the words come, or like, how does something like that happen?
Usually I have a feeling first. I don't remember what the feeling was for that one first, but I do know I was just thinking about the toy and thinking about how it goes. And then I try to think about sharing the feeling or sharing the possibility. Try to think about what I would want people to know, how I want them to feel. Usually like loved or cared about, or that I believe in them. Things like that.
I'm thinking about a line from one of your poems, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it leaves me with the knowledge that we are all responsible for putting out the fire and the flames.
That's right.
And I quote from it, and when I quote from it, I actually look it up so I can quote it properly. But it's one of the ones I come back to again and again because it's such a beautiful, faithful call.
It's a faithful call, yes.
Oh, you're muted for right now, Julián.
So I don't cough on you. I was saying thank you for that.
One thing that stands out to me so much about your poetry is that there's so many strong phrases that almost hit me like an affirmation, except for not the like cheesy Instagram ones, but like, you are not wrong about your faith. Your body was not built to serve capitalism. Your body belongs to you alone. Like, really strong statements that are so true and are also countercultural that it almost just feels like having a friend or being parented by someone who is reassuring and telling you, reminding you the truth that the world tries to tell us differently. And sometimes I just read over and over, you are not wrong about your faith. You are not wrong about your faith. I don't think that can be understated what that does for religious professionals in all sorts of situations.
I mean, we have to say that some of that is what I want someone to tell me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in there with you.
Yeah, we've had a lot of deep. I'm like, this has been so nurturing.
The external processor of me is actually internally processing for once in my life. Because there's so much beauty in that.
Yeah.
Listen, I wanted to ask you all about Cop City. We didn't talk about that this morning, I don't think. There's a baby gonna be in love with me now. But one of the things I understand is that some of the documentation says that things like collectivism and solidarity and mutual aid are dangerous ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about that, I mean, there's more strong statements that I definitely want to write about that. But if those can be hallmarks of our faith, if those can be hallmarks of our practice together, that's how I want to live. And that's what I want to support with my writing as well. The idea that when you show up for each other, when we show up together, when we decide that the future we want is a different one than we have now. We know it for a project. You figure out when you want to be done and you work backwards in your planner. It has to be that way for our lives. It has to be that way for our movement. Because the stories that we tell about the future are not neutral. They have a moral weight. And now is the time to tell them. So that's part of the reason that this particular collection is focused on the future in the way that it is.
Yeah. Did folks when I was out, did we say what Stop Cop City is? I wish.
Please do that now.
So Stop Cop City is a collective in Atlanta who's trying to stop the building of a quote unquote law enforcement leadership academy, basically a place that law enforcement from all over the US and the world can send their law enforcement officers to be even more aggressive and assertive in their carrying out of their modern day slave patrol duties. And they chose some land just outside of the city to try and build this. And there has been a grassroots on the ground effort to stop that from happening. There's been injunctions that have been absolutely ignored, legal injunctions. And then the next day there's bulldozers on the ground bulldozing the trees and forest. And their Stop Cop City movement folks was spilling the light. I gave it to a bunch of friends. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and say that?
So some friends in Phoenix have been out in Atlanta working on the collecting signatures. And they're also friends that I work with on lots of different movement projects. And I read your poetry a lot. And so they asked for a copy of Spilling the Light, which I gladly gave them. So it's there in Atlanta too. It's here in Phoenix. It's in a lot of movement people's hands.
Great.
Yeah, it's an ongoing, there's a pastoral call. Side with Love is there. There's, UU congregations and religious professionals who are lending their support there as well. And it is one of the best kind of microcosms of what we can actually do if we're willing to put everything on the line. People have lost their lives. There have been people who have been injured. There's people who are chained to trees. It's really all everybody just putting everything that they can on the line to stop this. So.
All of us need all of us to make it. Reverend Julián Jamaica Soto. I quote that all the time as well. And I want to We do. And I want to, Janine's point of sharing your book, Julián, and remembering that part of, I think, what gives humanity purpose and living is art, is loving art, whether it's words or pictures. I mean, we are not here simply to fucking be on, work and then die. We enjoying the beauty of who we are and how we are is, to me, like part of the soul nourishing reason why we do this work, and sharing poetry and sharing just the beauty of who we are, who we can be, right? So I love that, Janine. I also book away a lot, and I love that it's at Cop City. Stop Cop City, because fascism is really, really next. Okay, I just want to say one thing about the election. I'm gonna fucking vote for 92-year-old Joe Biden. I don't give a shit, because as some people have been pointing out, we need time. Like, of course the Democrats are trash, but they're not fucking as bad as fucking fascists who want us all in jail, who aren't, or dead, or like, let's all please be serious with this. Like, I get it. It's everybody's sick of voting for the lesser of evils, but we need to keep doing it. Full stop. Like, I don't. Okay. And
Yeah. I'm happy to remind folks what it was like when under the fascism of Trump. Like, I'm happy to pull out all of those headlines and all of those babies in cages, which we still have, but as not the way we did then. I am happy to read all of those receipts if people think that this doesn't matter. It matters. It matters. It's not the solution, but it matters. So you'll be hearing more from us on that. Last thoughts. Julián, you get the last word.
Sure. I can read you one more poem.
Thank you.
Wait, can I uplift as your unofficial publicist, where they can see you next before you close out with the poem?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So Julián and I will be driving around Arizona on a little chapbook launch tour. You definitely can catch us on TikTok singing in the car as we drive across the
state. You can?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. We're going to have our own little music videos while driving. But in the meantime, we'll put the link. Tanner attached it to the chat and to this video, but you can also attend the chapbook launch virtually if you'd like. So for our friends from anywhere, if you'd like to hear Julián talk about the future of us, you can support our fundraiser by purchasing a ticket and hanging out. And anyone who attends both the in-person events in Arizona and or the virtual event will have the opportunity to get their hands on this amazing, life-giving collection of poetry.
All right. That was awesome.
Just a little PR going your way.
This poem is not by me. Sometimes I put a poetry by other people and be like, people ask me, did you write that? I'll be like, no, that's why there's someone else's name underneath it. This is one of those cases. It's by Chen Chen, who's an amazing queer poet. And it's a story about the future that I just love. Here's what Chen Chen says. I love you to the moon and not back. Let's not come back. Let's go by the speed of queer zest and stay up there and get ourselves a little moon cottage. So pretty. Then start a moon garden with lots of moon veggies. So healthy. I mean, I was already moonlighting as an online moonologist most weekends. So this is immensely logical next step. Are you packing your bags yet? Don't forget your Sailor Moon jean jacket. Let's wear our Sailor Moon jean jackets while twirling in that lighter, queerer moon gravity. Let's love each other. So good. On the moon, let's love the moon. On the moon.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The VUU.